Hello and welcome to Thinking Outside the Box with me, Tim Box.
And me, Britt Box.
We talk about all things mental health, emotional well-being and how to navigate your own mind in these strange times. Please do not confuse our advice as medical advice because neither of us are doctors, and don't think for a moment that even though we come at these subjects with a certain light-hearted approach and a certain amount of levity, please don't think we're trivialising them because we certainly don't. However, we do like to come at these things from a slightly different perspective, hence the name Thinking Outside the Box. Okay, it is Episode 7, Britt.
It's the first of the sequel trilogy, isn't it?
It is, yeah. After the rapturous reception for the initial trilogy and the mixed reception but commercial success of the prequel trilogy.
Fabulous.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Episode 7 promises to introduce some new characters, expand on some of the themes, and maybe with a few cameos.
You've taken this too far.
Of the old
You've taken this too far. You've taken this too far.
All right. To be fair, though, if we do extend the Star Wars analogy, we're going to get comments, people saying, I thought this episode was just a rehash of episode 4, if I'm honest.
Only a very, very small number of our audience is going to understand that joke.
That's true. If you do, why not leave a comment wherever you're listening to this saying, I appreciated the Star Wars
I understood that reference.
Which in itself is a Marvel reference.
Yes.
Superb. Right, so we've firmly established ourselves as
losers.
Absolute nerds. I think we did that very
Everyone
early on.
knows we're losers. It's fine.
That's true. I'm all right with that. Okay, so here's the thing. Episode 7, this is one we've wanted to do for a while, actually, isn't it?
Yes, it was one of the first ones we put on the list when we were talking about potential podcast topics.
Yes, we're talking about how to support a loved one who is going through mental health difficulties or emotional well-being difficulties.
Yes.
Yeah? And the reason I wanted to do this was mainly because it's the question I get asked most of all the questions that I get asked. And I get a lot of questions asked of me about mental health, about anxiety in particular, just because of what I do. But this is the one that when I give presentations, maybe it's because I don't actually cover it in my presentation, but it's the question that I get asked the most from kind of just your average person in the street, because maybe it's because we all know somebody who's struggling.
Yeah, and it's a question that I get asked a lot with people who DM me on Instagram when they say, I've got a friend who's struggling, because my whole Instagram and everything I put out on social media is very much, it's okay not to be okay. If you need help, seek it out, all of this kind of stuff. So I will get people message me and say, well, how do I help my friend? And then I will do my best to give advice from there.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people who haven't gone through struggles and haven't gone through any mental health difficulties. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who have, and I would, you could argue it's about split down the middle, in certainly my experience. But those people that haven't been through it might struggle to understand, well, what on earth can I do? Yeah. And it can also seem like a bit of a heavy topic to be addressing.
I also feel that people don't want to make things worse. So as a result, people don't say anything. Yeah. So I know that we're going to cover grief at some point as well. I'm not sure if that's going to be the next one or the one after, but I remember when my mum died and people around me at the time just kind of stopped talking to me. And then years later, when I asked, well, where were you, kind of thing, I was told, oh, well, I didn't want to say anything that I shouldn't. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I didn't want to make it worse. But I guarantee you, saying nothing is so much worse.
Well, this is the thing. I think when we haven't been through it,
yeah,
the idea of talking to somebody who's going through it, it just seems a bit too real, and a bit too, I don't know, maybe out of our field of experience, out of our lane, that sort of thing. And like you said, we don't want to say the wrong thing because we don't want to make things worse or offend the person who's currently struggling.
No, and also everyone needs different things. So where some people might want to talk through it, like I have a friend who will talk through things, and then when I'm struggling, may message me and say, oh, I'll call you and we can talk through it. And I'm like, no, I just want to moan about it for now, but thank you. Like it very much depends where you are with it. So yeah, it can be exceptionally daunting for people to try and be there for somebody when it feels like the goalposts get moved every time something happens.
And I don't know about you, but I see a lot of posts on Instagram and things like that where it will say things not to say to somebody who's dealing with anxiety. And it's like, well, Christ, if all these posts are about the potential, landmines you could tread on just by trying to be the best you can be for them, then it's not surprising perhaps that we don't necessarily rush to people's aid just through fear of making things worse.
No, exactly. So hopefully we're going to give a few of our tips, both from my personal experience, Tim's professional experience, and then our experience as, you know, a married couple where both of us have struggled with one thing or another, and how we've found things to help.
Yeah, because I think we're in. I mean, obviously, it could be massively speaking too soon. I'm aware of this. You know, touching anything that's made out of wood in this room. But I think we've got now where we are quite a good angle on our strategies when one of us is struggling and how we deal with it positively for each other.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't always the case, was it?
Oh, it wasn't, absolutely. Well, here's the funny thing. So this is probably the best place to start. I mean, how many years ago was it that we did that bit of filming on this?
I think it was 2015, which, if you're listening to this currently, is 6 years ago.
Blimey.
It is 6 years ago, because we're going to talk about it, but there's a picture of us from this that we were originally going to use as the promo picture for this podcast.
That's right.
And then I looked at it and I was like, I can't use a picture that's 6 years old. I don't look like that anymore. Who is that young lady? I don't know who she is.
Amazing. I don't think you're that much different.
There are less lines and shorter hair. Like, it just, so yeah, but it was, so 6 years ago.
Also, I do remember thinking that in 5 years' time from then, I'd probably be completely grey and I'd be quite excited about that. But no, the grey hair still resists coming in.
No, I'm getting them instead.
That's true, actually. It's a weird effect, isn't it?
You're giving me grey hair.
Maybe that's it. But anyway, aside from that, it was for Time to Change, wasn't it? The charity, and they approached us to do a little video. So you recorded a solo video about what you went through, and then they recorded a video with the both of us where we were talking about, well, in particular, what do I do when you're suffering with depression? Yeah,
the campaign was small things. So it was the small things that you do for yourself and for other people that can add up to something bigger. I think actually when I promote this podcast, I'll put a link. I do believe the video is still up on YouTube, so I'll put a link so you can watch the video for yourself. But the one I did solo, I went up to a studio in London with a bunch of other mental health advocates as well, and we all kind of told our story of a small thing that someone does that can help us, and I spoke about you, and then the filming crew came down to us and made it into a longer video basically, and interviewed you for it as well.
Yeah, and I remember when they asked me the question, I started talking about, well, as a mental health professional, etc., and they just stopped me instantly and said, no, we're not interested in your professional opinion, because that's not why we're here. No. We want to know, what do you do as Britt's husband, as the person that's there for her?
Do you know what? I think you were my boyfriend at the time.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I must have been.
It was before we were engaged. You were just my boyfriend.
Oh, that's cute. And so, but the problem was, all the while I'd known you, I knew of your story through depression, but I hadn't necessarily experienced it, because all the time we'd known each other, you were out of the other side of that, the major depression you dealt with after the death of your mum and all that happened around that. And we were in a good place because we were, in this new relationship, and we were setting up home together, and we kind of had our ambitions and our goals, all that sort of thing. And there was a bit of me thinking, well, I really want to say, oh, she's over all that now. I really want to say she doesn't suffer with depression anymore. And I think in the end, I just talked about what I do if you're feeling a bit down or something like that. Like, I don't know, make you a cup of tea or give you a hug or something like that. Something very general that I didn't necessarily feel convinced was, I don't know what's a right or a wrong message in these instances, but I didn't necessarily feel like, yes, this is the answer, people. This is the small thing that will create the massive impact. But I just felt, well, what do I do then? But I wasn't, this is the thing, I don't think I'd experienced what you were describing to me that you'd been through. I hadn't experienced a time when you'd been going through that, as it were.
No, and if people listening to this have listened to, was it episode 3 where we spoke about my story and my depression? If you've listened to that, you'll know it's kind of, over the years, come and gone, ebbed and flowed, like the tides of the sea. It's kind of gone up and down, up and down. So you met me. So you met me at a really interesting time. You met me when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just get over this, and I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna sort it out. And you met me literally when I was on the way up the hill.
Yeah.
And then this video was happening when we were at the top of the hill.
Yes.
And it was only a few years later that I started to roll down the hill.
Yeah. And again, there were certain things that happened in your life, and I remember there was a particular career crisis that you faced. There was
yes.
certain existential crisis as well. What's your purpose? That
I believe
sort of
it's
thing.
called a nervous breakdown. That's what I would call it.
But this is the thing. So we went through stuff after that.
Yeah, but at the time, we just hadn't. The most you'd seen is when I've been a bit, PMS like, and I've needed chocolate and a hot water bottle. That's basically been it. So it was, you did really well with the tools that you had, but I do find it interesting that we grew from that and we learned more from that.
Yeah, I agree, because I think I learned how to help you in those instances later on. And I think it's interesting that now. I don't think my answer would be massively different.
No.
Yeah, but I do think it would come from a slightly more experiential point of view.
Oh, good word.
Thank you very much. Word of the day. Rather than the point of view that says, well, I think I know how the mind works and how we can help people. But but it wasn't necessarily that I was used to being that role of the supporting main person in the life of somebody who's struggling.
No, and I hope you don't mind me saying on the podcast in front of our millions of listeners that that when I did start going down sort of a darker path and you were trying to help me, I will absolutely say that the brand of help you were offering was not the type of help that at the time was welcomed.
I would say I was shit at it. If I'm honest,
which is hilarious because it obviously has no bearing on what you do for a living, but I do think that because what you do for a living, I think it hindered, because there's a big difference between a client of yours and your wife or your girlfriend.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? I went into therapist mode. I went into what helps my clients get the other side of this.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not what I'm here for you. And you were very, to be fair, you didn't snap back or anything. You didn't sort of reject the help.
No.
But there came a point where you had to explain to me, as soon as I start talking in my therapy language, there's a bit of you that disengages because it recognises that's not the Tim I want at this time.
No.
Yeah. And that's often why, because I have to talk to, when I'm training my practitioners, one thing they have to understand is that, look, we can help people that we know. Yeah, I know some modalities say we can't, but we can, because if we know some good stuff that will help them out, let's give them the benefit of that knowledge. But don't be surprised if we are not positioned in the right way to help the people in that way that we really care about.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're probably, those people that we're trying to help, they're not looking at us as any sort of therapist or have any sort of therapeutic interaction with each other. They're just looking on us as their loved one.
I'm a firm believer. I think everyone should go to therapy. I've said this before, and I shall say it again. I think every single person on this earth can benefit from therapy in one way or another.
I agree, said the therapist.
Maybe not what you do. Maybe other people need different types of therapy.
How very dare you? No, that's fair enough.
Different things work for different people.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think that when people are reaching out to a friend, to a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, nan, mum, whatever, whoever they're reaching out to, they're not looking for therapy.
Yeah.
They're looking for emotional support. They're looking, I believe, and I know this is a sweeping generalisation, they're looking for just the reassurance that they're okay, that what they're saying isn't mental and what they're feeling isn't awful, And don't get me wrong, I know there's a varying scale on this, and I know that there's a big difference from someone saying, I feel a bit down, to someone saying, my life is a catastrophe and I don't know how it's ever going to get better.
Yeah.
So depending on what the person will say to you is depending on what you need to say back to them. But I think ultimately we all just want to know that we're not alone.
Yeah. The ability to share what's going on in our head and have the person hearing it not look at us or react in a way that suggests they think we're mental.
Yeah.
Yeah. The having that information out there and accepted is perhaps the best thing anyone can do for the person that they're trying to help, is say that, you know what, it's okay that you're feeling this way, and together we will get you through it. Yeah. And because this is the ultimate thing, isn't it? We want to feel safe so we can move towards happiness. Yeah, that's the equation here that we're working on. And if all you can do as a partner is make sure that person feels safe, then that's all you can do. I very much switch off the therapist when you come to me with your issues, because when you're in that time, in that moment, we've got to remember as well, we're in quite an emotive state when we're struggling, whether it be anxiety or depression or whatever we want, whatever label we might want to give it. We're in an emotive state, and our emotive state isn't that time when we're thinking logically or rationally. So all of this lovely rational information that a therapist might give us, we might not necessarily hear it in that context, because we've got all of the, I don't know, the more emotional, more kind of, I hesitate to use the word irrational, but maybe the illogical stuff going on as well. And I think it's important that we recognise. So sometimes I will talk to you, won't I, about general theories and principles and ideas about how we can change stuff. But I certainly don't talk to you about that when you're coming to me for help, because you're not in the place to hear that at the time. You're like, give me a hug, you know, that kind of thing, you know.
And I also think that, so, you know, I've said this to you before off air, so, you know, it's I'm being very open and honest here. But when I was starting to feel down, when I was starting to feel like, oh God, I'm drifting towards depression again, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to I was too scared to tell you, because not that I felt I couldn't talk to you, but because this is what you do for a living. You know, you help people all around the world every day, and I didn't want you to I didn't want to feel like I'd let you down by feeling depressed. So it took me quite a while to go to you. And I know that there are a lot of people that maybe don't want to tell their friend, their partner, that they're feeling that way, because ultimately it's very easy for one person to say, I think I'm depressed, and the other person to feel like it's almost their fault, or that they've got some kind of responsibility, when they absolutely haven't. Like I've said this to you before, that I think, you know, anything I have felt has never been your fault. But I was too scared to tell you, because I thought that maybe, you know, I'd feel like I'd let you down, and you'd feel like you'd let me down, and then that doesn't cultivate any kind of help, and that doesn't help you going forward. And I think now we've reached a point where I know I can walk in and I can say to you, I am not okay today, and you will, you know, you will be there, and you won't feel that it's anything to do with you personally. And
I think I had to get over that.
Yes.
I know early on, my whole theory was, well, you're not depressed now because you're with me now.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
I mean, I'm not in my proudest moment declaring that.
I mean, this is the same man who said to me, I do look quite like a Disney prince, actually.
Look, I think we just need to come away from that idea, okay? I said it, it's out there, you know, okay, now it's on record, fine. That's if I don't edit that sentence out.
You're now more like the Prince and Princess's dad now. Really, you're getting to that level.
Yeah.
Look, I was watching The Little Mermaid the other day, and I found myself absolutely siding with Triton. No, Brilliant. You are 16. You do not know him. You are not giving up being a mermaid for a man. Simple. Carry on.
Well, anyway, so I feel like we have gone off topic there. But no, the thing, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Brilliant. I'm now fixated. No, that was it. So I had.
Were you thinking about The Little Mermaid?
I was actually thinking, was I justified in saying I looked like a Disney prince? I think I was at the time. Anyway, moving on. I think, I had to get over the idea that because this is what I do and I help people, it shouldn't happen that you struggle, because I'm, you know, and also that's me being, Tim Box, the therapist, but also what you said is absolutely right. Our other halves are naturally going to feel like, well, hang on, it must be saying something about what I provide as a partner and our relationship. How can we be depressed or anxious if we're in a good relationship? And the fact is, life doesn't stop throwing us challenges that we might at times feel overwhelmed by, regardless of how supportive our partner is. So it's important that if you're sitting there thinking, I want to talk to my partner, but I'll feel like I'm letting them down, or if you're sitting there, I don't know, thinking that my partner is struggling and that's a reflection on me, it absolutely isn't, and there's no real, I don't know, there's no technical, you know, studies or research I can talk about there. There is just like, that is the simple fact of it. It doesn't matter how supportive you are, how loving you are. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you're with will regard everything as okay emotionally with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do find it as well with family members, you know, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, you know, it's very hard not to take it as, oh, you're not happy. Does that mean it's my fault? Does that mean...
Well, I had to get my ego out of it. I had to remove my ego from the equation, which is funny enough what I always talk about, you know, again, the people that I train and what I do therapeutically is get my ego out of it. But I needed to do that in this context. And I think then I started to be of use to you.
Yes.
When I stopped kind of trying to have this idea that the world's mental health, and particularly my wife's mental health, was my sole responsibility.
Yeah, exactly that.
I think I want to talk about, before we move on to like, okay, what do I do then? And what do we do for each other? I want to just cover something, because we kind of touched upon it. The difference between what men and women need. Because I don't want to sound like I'm being in any way too sweeping or reductive in these ideas, but there's no doubt about it. Women generally emotionally react a little bit differently to these crises than men do.
Yeah.
And I know there's that whole, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus sort of thing that goes on. There's that book, isn't it? But in my experience, if a woman's struggling, you know, I did the whole thing of, right, what's the problem? Let's fix the problem. Let's see what's lacking. Let's see what's...
Gets the toolbox out, gets a spanner out, tries to fix
exactly. And that's because, as you know, I think as a guy, we do that, don't we? We say, okay, what's gone wrong? How do I fix the malfunction? Whereas you were just like, just put your arm around me, just be here for me. You know what I mean? I don't want you to try and fix it as if I've not learnt the lesson I need to learn, or I've not understood it properly. And yet I know that isn't just me being me. I know that guys will often need a solution focused approach, if you know what I mean. They'll be ruminating over, what can I do about this, rather than I need someone to reach out to about this.
But also, I don't think that's just inherently us. You are male, you are born with this. I think that unfortunately it is a branch of the toxic masculinity that we do hear about and we do talk about.
Yeah, the perceived roles.
Yes, the perceived roles that men, you know, don't talk about your feelings, don't be sad, don't cry, blah, blah, blah. And all this bullshit that I literally can't stand.
The idea that needing help, there's something wrong with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you can't talk about how you feel.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the same way we watch it when we watch, you know, like American TV shows and stuff. When men hug on that, it's like, and just like hitting each other's backs, and it's like, it's this massive show of masculinity, which is just ridiculous. It's in the same way that, you know, just hug your friend. Just talk to your friend. It's not... Like, I know, I do know, because I read the statistics, I know the majority of people who listen to this podcast are women, but if there are any men that are listening to this podcast, it's okay. It's okay. It's, you know, it's not gay to hug a friend and talk to your mate. It's, you know, it's just, it's okay. Yeah. And I think this is the problem. It's been instilled in guys from, I mean, we're going to talk about, you know, men's mental health specifically at some point. I know that we are. And I just feel like it's that thing of men want to fix things. Yeah. And women want to talk about
Well, this is the thing. So here's an interesting statistic. I think it's interesting anyway. The people that come to see me in my practice, one-to-one, it's roughly about 70-75% female.
Yeah.
The people that watch my YouTube videos, it's about 80% male.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, you could conclude a lot of things from that. You could conclude there's more men on YouTube than there are women. You could, all this sort of thing. But the thing that, for me putting my spin on it, I think guys want to learn what they need to do to fix it.
Yeah.
And women would like to reach out to get help to fix it. And I'm not talking about women are less empowered or, you know, inherently so or something like that. But what I mean is that men, if we say to a man, look, you need to go and do this embarrassing, awkward thing, but when you do it, it'll be all sorted. You know, for example, men have to go and have a prostate checkup and things like that.
I knew you were going to talk about that.
I don't know. Yeah, why was that? What,
you're reaching that age.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe there's something looming on the horizon for me. But the point being, if we have a problem, if it might be difficult, it might be a chore, but if we know the solution to it, we kind of engage in that. Then, you know, we get it done. But a lot of the rhetoric around mental health is we all struggle. Yeah. It's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's not then necessarily joining the dot, that extra step to, and then we can find out how we change it.
Yeah.
So that we no longer suffer with it. What's promised to people a lot in the general media is if you share what's going on with you, you will find that there are people there who also go through this and you won't feel so bad about going through it. Yeah. And I think we should be saying, I think more men would engage and actually reach out if they knew that reaching out would involve a brief period of going, you know, talking about the things they don't want to talk about, but then and now you feel better. You're past it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what makes me say this, because so I do business networking.
Yes.
I have a group of people that I see every week, and many of them will come to see me because, you know, most people at some point are going to struggle.
Yeah.
And I've seen it so many times. People in the group never mentioning that they're struggling with any sort of mental health or emotional well-being issue, you know, like anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
And then they come to see me and we get them the other side of that particular issue.
Yeah.
And then what they do, they shout from the rooftops how pleased they are to be free of it.
Yeah.
They're not embarrassed to say they suffered it, because they know now it's finite.
Yeah.
It's reached an end. And I think a lot of the stuff that goes on, if we knew there was a finish line to reach, we would start to run that marathon.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the promise that there might not be, that stops us engaging from it. And then, of course, you know, we all know the figures about suicide and men and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, what option have we got if there's nothing to fix it?
Yeah. So I think this is it as well. So I know that when you and I got together and everything was sort of okay, but then I started struggling, there was a bit of me that was like, well, that's to be expected because I'm the broken one. I'm the one who's got depression. I'm the one that's struggling. So therefore you need to be there for me. And that was that. And that was the dynamic. But then I do remember a time when you then were struggling, and I had to step up and be there for you, which, you know, and this is the thing, because we both have different strategies and different ways around it. It was like, okay, how can I help you? And the one thing that I learned when helping you and also helping, you know, a lot of my friends is just listening, not jumping in with what you think it is, not jumping in with your solutions, not jumping in with, oh, well, you know, it's not that bad. None of that. Just shut up and listen to what the person has to say.
Yeah. Without judgment.
Without judgment.
Yeah. So this is bringing us perfectly on to where we're going next, which is that, okay, what can we do then? How do we actually support somebody?
Yeah.
And the first thing, you're absolutely right, hear the person. Listen to what they're saying. A lot of the time, they're not looking for solutions. We haven't really got to say anything back to them. They need to get all of these thoughts out.
Well, first and foremost, they need to realise that it's a safe space for them to speak to you.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people, myself included, that will say, you know, when people say, how are you? Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. No. How are you? Talk to me.
Yeah.
What's going on? You know, and then once people realise, oh, okay, this space is safe for me to explain what's happening, you know, because this is the funny thing, right? So in America, I learned this when I went out to America, but we automatically will say, hi, are you all right?
Yeah.
We say that.
Yeah.
Americans do not. Yeah. So I remember saying it to somebody in a shop, just at checkout in Target, and saying, hi, are you all right? I'm fine, thank you.
Why are you asking?
Yeah, it was very much like that. So we are so used to people saying, you all right? And we are so used to replying, yeah, fine, you?
Yeah.
It's almost like they're not even words anymore. It's just noise.
Yeah.
So when you ask someone how they are and they answer, ask them again.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the thing I want to say as well, in terms of hearing what people are saying, you'd be surprised how therapeutic it is to start to have to articulate your thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I always say this to people, that it's like a fast-moving storm in our head, especially like anxiety or depression or those kind of vicious circle thoughts that we have going on, where the more we think about it, the worse it seems to get. Though, to break that pattern, if we have to articulate it, we get to slow down that thought process, and we get to be a little bit more cause and effect about it. So we start to say, well, look, because this is going on, because of this, and because of this, and we have then a logical linear structure to what we're talking about. And it might be the first time we've even realised, oh, this is why I feel this way, and this is actually the thing that's bothering me most. And we start to unravel it slightly, because if it doesn't make sense when we articulate it, the person in front of us won't know what we're talking about.
Is this like when you speak to me and you say, what's wrong? And I say, I don't know. And you're like, no, hang on, just think about it for a second.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do some sort of Jedi mind trick.
Look, the I don't know, I don't know what's wrong, that's like, it looks like a brick wall. The brick wall, but actually it's like a poster. It's like made of paper. You very quickly can push through that I don't know if you realise you can. And this is that's why I'm always encouraging people to say, look, okay, you keep saying I don't know. a bit of you does. We've just got to find that bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just bouncing ideas backwards and forwards that just does the best work for people, and gets them to kind of make a few realizations for themselves. So I think that was the thing that you taught me, was that just listening is sometimes the best thing you can do. And also the other thing that I've heard as well, said a few times, of all the things, of all the advice, all the therapy that people get, the best thing, the people that many people will cite as the thing that made the difference, was the moment where they articulated what was going on with them to somebody, and that person completely accepted what they were saying.
Yes.
Rather than judging, or rather than rejecting or dismissing.
Yes.
They accepted it. And it was almost like that person was
it's like
saying,
it qualifies it.
And it allows you to say, look, I get what's going on with you. I might not understand it fully, but I know that what you're saying doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you insane. It just means that you're struggling right now with a certain set of thoughts that need to be talked through.
I've got a friend, actually, funny you should say that. I've got a friend that I speak to very regularly, and she will be the first person to say, okay, I don't understand what you're going through. I've not been there. I don't get it, but I'm here and I'm listening. And I can just, not like rant, because that's, really exhausting on her part, but I can just sort of say, this is going on, this is how I feel. And she will listen to it. Do you know what I mean? Even though she doesn't necessarily have sort of hands-on experience in, I felt that way, so you should do this. But she listens, and that's kind of all you need. And I think one of the problems is, as well, at the moment, is because so many of us are going through stuff, it's so easy for us to relate it to the struggles that we're going through. And I'm the worst for this. Like, I'm the worst person for this. So if someone says to me, oh, this happened and I feel this way, I will say, gosh, that's terrible. I know when I went through that, blah, blah, blah. And it's not making it about me. It's just me trying to understand. It's me trying to put myself in that position.
Well, this is why we drag our own experiences into it. And we talk about ours because we're trying to connect with the person. It's that sort of inbuilt need to connect and forge alliances. So we're trying to
sometimes that helps. Sometimes that really helps.
Absolutely,
Sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly. It's one of those things that we could easily give advice now, and everything that we're saying is a good thing to do would also, in some contexts, be a bad thing to do. So,
but this is all we've got. So, and you're listening to it. So we're trying to help. So I have it when, sometimes if I talk about my mum, and I'll get messages from people, all part of the Dead Mum Club as well. All saying, oh, my mum died 10 years ago. My mum died last week. My mum, or the ones who tell me that their mum has been through cancer treatment but survived it and came out the other side. And I know what they're doing. I know they're trying to basically say, I know how you feel. But obviously, unless they were a 16-year-old girl with a single parent mother who got left completely on their own, they don't know exactly how I feel. In the same way that I could never even begin to guess how they feel. We're just all trying to help each other. We're all trying to be there for each other.
Absolutely.
And I think, put it this way, I know it very much sounds like this whole podcast is do this, but don't do this, but don't do this, but do this. Doing anything is better than doing nothing.
I would agree with that,
So even if you get it wrong, trying can really, really help somebody.
That's it, because at the very least, even if, as I've done in the past, stumbled foot first into things and got things wrong, I've at least displayed that I care.
Yes.
And that's what I'm always thinking these days. The old me was very gun shy in terms of any sort of displays of emotion. And obviously, with what I do, I'm a lot more comfortable with it now. But I think I'm just a little bit more mature, a little bit more experienced. And I've got to realise that sometimes people need to express emotion and express thoughts. Because here's the thing, I also know that sometimes, and this isn't just with any negative thoughts, sometimes there's frustration, sometimes there's anger. I know sometimes my job is just to be that person that will hear you say the things you can't say to anyone else, but you need to blooming say to somebody. You know what I mean? And because it's not like, I've learned now that a lot of the things you say when, that we all say when we're emotional, don't necessarily have a lot of rational, thought process behind it. It's just what I want to say right now.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not drifting into the realms of abusing each other, then that's okay, because I know that a lot of what you talk about is just like, well, let's just get that out of my head, and that's absolutely fine. I'm kind of happier with that now than I was initially. But again,
and I'm really pleased with that, because that makes me feel like I'm in a safe space where if there's anything going on, I can talk to you about it. And I know you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
And I know you feel like you can talk to me more than you've spoken to other people, because we have cultivated that space.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. So we come from this very privileged position of being in a really, really strong relationship where we talk about these things and we're both completely comfortable with sharing things with each other that we wouldn't share with anyone else. Yeah. Now, not everyone has that. I get that. So, so please don't think that all of this advice purely comes from a position of a stable relationship, because I would like to think that if we reach out, we'll find the people that are there for us and that are prepared to play that role for us, in terms of the support network.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've cultivated that relationship with a lot of my friends. You'll come upstairs and I'll be on FaceTime to somebody, just sort of helping them go through a thing or like talk through something. I feel that it certainly isn't exclusive to the person you're in a relationship with. It's just anyone you care about. As long as they know that you're going to listen to what they're saying and they can sort of express this to you and you can hear it and you can be there for them. That's all that's required, know. But obviously what we're not saying just be a sounding board for other people, because that is equally as mentally detrimental. I think that you've got to take care of yourself as well. And I've had it where I've had a friend reach out to me and I've been there for them and I've listened to them, but ultimately the things that they've said to me have triggered certain emotions in me, and then I've needed to talk to you or talk to another friend and kind of send it down the chain, if you know what I mean.
Well, this is it. We're all going to be in some way, we're going to be someone's kind of confidant or someone's therapist, if you like, if that that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. The person we talk to. We also need the person that the therapist version of us talks to, so that we can have that support. But we will talk about what about the people who are doing the supporting. Where do they get their support from? We'll talk about that in a short while, because I don't want to move on yet from things we can do, because we're talking about listening, hearing the person. That's great. I've recognised something that I do, because a couple of things here that I realise I do almost without thinking. It's not like okay, Britt's there, let's initiate this strategy now.
Like playing a video game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like that move means I give that move now. It's not really like that.
It's not Pokemon.
No, exactly. Thank God. But it's something that I do if I feel like we're wallowing in something, or we've just got stuck talking about something, or you have those talks where you realise, God, we've been sitting here on the bed for a long time, haven't we? Or something like that. And suddenly it's very dark where the sun's gone down a bit. Then I'm like, right, let's do something. And this is the thing here. If it's anxiety or if it's depression, both of those things. So anxiety is a visceral call to action.
Yes.
Yeah, the feelings that we have, it's us going into the stress response. It's our body saying, do something, do something, do something, because we're anxious about a certain state of affairs, So a good way of dissipating all that energy is to actually do something.
Yeah.
And what we do, sorry, before I say that, and depression is the don't do something almost. It's the apathy. But again, we're in a place now where that if you're starting to feel in that depressed place, you do recognise the value of, okay, let's go out and grab a coffee. Or let's go somewhere
change
for a
scenery.
walk. Exactly.
Reset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Change your surroundings, create a new scene in this movie. Where potentially you can come at it with maybe a different mood or a different start point.
Like just popping out for a coffee. It's even at the moment, a takeaway coffee and 2 meters away on a bench with a friend. I mean, if you're listening to this and it's not 2021, you're probably it's a callback to the coronavirus situation. But just doing that, you might not want to do it. Like, it might be someone that you love, and you might be like, oh, why did I say yes to that today? I really don't want to do that today. But you will never come back from it feeling worse. I promise you.
No, this is it.
I promise you.
So I remember I got a lot of kickback from you about this stuff when I started to say, well, let's just go and do something. Let's go for that walk or something like that. And you were very much like, oh, I don't want to. Can't you understand? I don't want it yet. But then on those times when we did get to do it, I made a point of like when we got back in and it had very clearly shifted our state.
Yeah.
I made a point of pointing that out to you. It's like, I'm really glad you did. No, it wasn't. Yeah, that's actually, I told you you'd feel better. No, I mean, what I mean was I made sure that we didn't just finish there and then get back on with that. We actually said that was a good strategy, wasn't it? That worked out for us. We feel better now, and that kind of thing. And then hopefully what has happened is you've taken that on board as knowledge now, as actually this is a good thing to do. So there's a little bit of you, when I say, well, let's go and grab a coffee or let's go and do this, you're like, yeah, that's a good idea, actually. I know I'll feel better when we do it. Even though I know I don't want to right now, I know that in the future me will thank me.
Yeah, and I do the same for you. If I know you're going to be stuck in your office all day, I will come and grab you and say, right, get your shoes on, let's go out for a walk.
Yeah, I know the other day you arrived in my office with...
In my coat.
In your coat, ready to go. I was like, okay. And you know, I've learnt now not to resist that, not to say, but I've got lots to do. I'm like, no, you're right. Let's change our scenery. Let's get some fresh air. Let's just, you know, be us for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can't even overstate the importance of that, I think, in our life, what we do. But I think, you know, if we recognise the value of that, then even in those moments when there's a bit of a saying, no, I don't want to, that bit might remember, yeah, but it was
I enjoyed it last time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the third thing, and this is a really random one because it only came into my conscious awareness as I was preparing this podcast. What I try and do is remain me and be me in the face of all of this. So the old me would very much get dragged into the hole with you.
Right.
Yeah, so I would join your mood. And that's because I try and empathise with you and I try and be there with you.
Yeah. And
it was very much I would come down into that hole where there's no escape from.
Yeah.
You know? Now what I try and do is bring me to the equation. So, you know, if I won't then spend the day with you in this. You know this. I mean, I'm not articulating this very well, but I will. The next time I walk into the room with you, I won't be in that empathetic, depressed energy. I'll bring a different energy. I'll bring my normal everyday energy to it, so that it gives you a chance to spot the exit from where you are, if you know what I mean.
So in a way that, you know, if you do reach out to a friend, like a specific friend, you're reaching out to that specific friend because of how that friend normally makes you feel on a daily basis. So they want you to help them come up to where you are rather than you to sort of meet them where they are. I get you. Yeah.
And I try and do that as much as I can. Now, okay, someone like Tony Robbins, I believe, would call that breaking the state. So if you see some of his videos about him helping people with depression, he'll do this thing where when he'll take them into that moment of that thought process, that little circular thought process of depression, and then he'll, I don't know, do something stupid or say something funny or do something that will take them out of it. And then he'll take them back in again. And then he'll take them out of it again.
Yeah.
And I saw one, I think in the film, the Tony Robbins film, he says, you know, do you think it's maybe those shoes that are the problem? To this guy that's talking about his horrendous life. And he tries to get the guy just to come away and laugh about something briefly. And I think if we get used to coming out of the hole, then it helps us now. And so that's kind of what I do naturally, I think, is I don't say, oh, Brit's struggling today, I'll tiptoe around her.
Yeah.
I kind of, I don't, you know, I'm not trying to bombastically force you into a different place.
No.
But I am maybe remaining in my energy so that you can, at any point...
join you.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But I didn't realise I was doing that until I thought about it in terms of prepping this podcast. The other thing is, the other reason for that is that we are very much like children in that we pick up on the energy of the people around us who we care about.
Yeah.
If mum and dad seem afraid, we're going to be afraid.
Yes.
And if the person who we are spending our time with seems to regard this as intensely serious, then we will place more dramatic impact on those thoughts, you know, because we'll be aware that, you know what, I think I'm right to think this is this is really serious.
And then you'll just spiral.
Yeah. It almost like the energy, it amplifies the energy rather than breaks the state, if you know what I mean. So I think, and there is that thing, isn't there, that we become a kind of a chimera of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah, so be careful who you spend your time with.
Well, this is it, though. People always say that, don't they?
Yeah.
But it's also true if, we spend every hour of every day together.
Don't we, though?
Yeah, which is I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. No,
okay.
of course it is.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So we have been a lot. This is the thing that we saw when we went into lockdown and people were suddenly having to spend all day every day with each other because we were in the same house. We did that all the time.
We've done this for 7 years.
It's been what we used to. So it would be natural for us to become a slightly morphed version of each other.
Yeah, I do think you and I have definitely sort of changed each other's personalities and the way we are for the better.
Absolutely.
But you are completely right. They do say, the people you spend the most time with are the people that you sort of emulate and become, which is why you have to be careful where you're putting your energy. You have to be careful who you're spending time with. And I am a very firm believer. I don't care how long you've been friends with somebody. I don't care what shared experiences you've had. I don't care if you've known them since you were at primary school. If the relationship or the friendship is not good for you and your mental health, you walk away from it. And it's hard, absolutely. Of course it is. I'm not saying it's easy, and you are allowed to grieve that friendship. You are allowed to miss that person. Absolutely. You're allowed to miss the friendship that you had. But the minute it becomes toxic to your mental health, you have to protect yourself because you are the only person who can protect you.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to come away from it.
And this is what we've said before, I think, is that some people are going to be really good for you in those circumstances, and you're going to feel like, they help lift me, they elevate me, they make me feel good about me. Other people have the opposite effect on you, and it's worth recognizing that, because as you made the point, sometimes we have a friendship group just because they've always been our friends.
I met them at school. All that sort of stuff.
So occasionally in the work I'll see people who are trying to give up like recreational drugs or something. And it's almost like universally 100% of the time they will list one of the issues, the struggles to stop, is that, all my mates, when we go out, that's the end of the night, is we'll get some Coke or something like that, and we'll do that together. And, it kind of forces me to play life coach, and say, are they the right friends for you then? If you no longer want to be that person...
You sound like the school counsellor.
Well, you know what I mean? I do a bit, don't I? Like, you're hanging out with the right crowd. But that's the thing, isn't it? Just because they were your friends at school, now you're a man, you have your own life, or a woman rather, you're an adult, so to speak. You have your own life and your own idea about who you want to be. You no longer have to just be the version of you that fits in with that crowd. You do get to evolve and grow and become a better version of yourself. And if that means, okay, if they're going to stay being those people, maybe different friends are going to be right for you now.
I think, honestly, we gravitate towards the people that we feel happiest around. And we automatically gravitate away from the people that it's like, I don't really want to speak to them. I don't really want to ask their calls. And I'm not saying, only be friends with people who you can get something from. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But what I am saying is you have to protect your mental state. And if there are people in your life that are making you feel bad for feeling a certain way, I had a message from somebody who basically said that some of their closest friends didn't believe that mental health was a thing, like it's the tooth fairy or something, and
it's the force.
And she said that really affected her because she had no one to turn to. And then I said, well, have you got any friends that aren't those particular friends? And she said yes, and I'm like, may I suggest reaching out to them? Not everybody that you want to reach out to is going to be able to help you, and that's okay. Because let's not forget, as I said before, everyone is going through something. Everyone is going through their own stuff. So, maybe when, you reach out to someone, maybe they don't have the emotional energy to respond at that moment. But that doesn't mean that they're never going to help you. That doesn't mean they're never going to be there for you. It just means that they need some love right now.
Absolutely. And the thing, when we reach out, it would be really easy to notice the people that seem to dismiss us, or they don't believe in it, or they don't think it's valid, or we're just seeking attention, or whatever they might
God,
say.
don't.
There are going to be those people.
Yeah.
But it'd be easy to focus on them and say, well, that's a reason not to speak out then. And absolutely it isn't, because just as there are those people who will not understand, there are plenty of people who absolutely will. And even if they don't understand, will do all they can to be there for you and try and understand for you. Focus on those people, because they'll be the people that right now, they're the ones you need to spend time with.
Yeah.
And I think it would be crazy to think everyone that we've ever known or been friends with throughout this whole journey of our life, every version of us that there's ever been, it will be correct to be with the same people for that whole journey.
Yeah.
Because as much as we might spend a lot of time together, have similar ideas about things, have similar experiences of growing up, it'd be crazy to think that the way we evolve will perfectly match and go along the same lines as that person.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay at some point to say, I think I need different people around me right now, or certainly I need to spend a bit more time with this particular side of my friendship group and maybe not so much of that side.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to cover as well about those people who are caring for people, because I think often it gets overlooked, the pressure that it can put on people when they're always having to be the crutch that people lean on.
Yeah.
And I think there's some real basic fundamental things to remember. And the first thing I would say is that if you are there for somebody who's going through mental health difficulties, don't make the mistake of thinking you sacrifice your own mental health to help prop them up. And what I mean by that is don't neglect yourself. Don't neglect your self-care to look after someone else, because if you do that, you'll end up in just as bad a state and you'll be no good to anyone, let alone yourself.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I would re-stress the point about don't necessarily get dragged down into their way of thinking. In that sense, because the reason they're reaching out is because they don't want to think this way. So it's like, you get two people, and where they shift their emotional energy towards each other, we need to make sure that, because the person that is anxious or depressed, there's a part of them that will be absolutely adamant about that, in terms of it will be almost like these emotional responses feel set in stone.
Yes.
We have to maintain our own emotional well-being, not least because it gives them the option to shift that position.
Yeah.
But also because it maintains your own mental well-being. The other thing, there's a couple of thoughts as well that we need to I want to actually underline here. The first thing is, you can't save them.
Yeah.
You can't fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to be able to say the right thing that ultimately gets them the other side of it. But I know you've said this to me many times. You've said, stop trying to fix me. Stop trying to put things right. And a lot of the time, we've just got to accept that all we can do is be there for people.
Yeah.
But the final thing, their struggle and their journey is not your fault or your responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think we have to remember, is that the only person that can get the person you're helping, the only person that can get on the other side of it is themselves ultimately. All we can do is hopefully be the tool to do something about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what I really, really hope the main takeaway from this podcast would be for people is that if you are struggling, then to reach out to people. But equally, if you have someone who is reaching out to you, to know that, as I've said before, the only wrong thing you can do is not listen to them. Is to not reply to them, because I promise you, once someone gets to the point where they want to ask for help, just being there is going to be the best thing that
Absolutely.
they can do. Like, I know that there are certain friends that I have that I can message and just be like, hey, have you got 5 minutes? Have you got 5 minutes for a quick FaceTime or something like that? And like like the other day when I messaged my friend Kira, and she and I said, are you free for a FaceTime? And she was like, yeah, I'm here. What do you need? And all I really wanted to do was show her how I looked in my new Oodie which
nice, yeah.
which is basically, if you don't know, it's just like a giant hoodie that comes down to my knees, and it's very soft and it's super comfy and it's lovely.
I'll tell you what you look like. You look like a tiny child in an oversized jumper is what you look like.
I feel like a marshmallow in it, I'll be honest. But I just wanted to show her me floating around in a giant marshmallow outfit.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
so I think this is the thing, just reaching out to people, I think, and knowing that that the people you reach out to are gonna be there and are gonna listen and are gonna believe you, which I feel is a bit of a loaded sentence at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
So I just think there is so much you can do with it. Please don't worry about getting it wrong. I think that's my big takeaway from it. Please don't worry about getting it wrong. And I know, because when I've had people message me and they've said, what can I say to this person to make them feel better? What can I do for this person to make them feel better? And it doesn't even have to be that proactive, if you know what I mean. It just, as a base level, listen.
That's it. I think the big fear of the person that wants to speak out and get help is not that, I won't speak out in case the person I'm talking to says the wrong thing to me.
Yes.
That's not the fear.
Yeah.
The fear is the person will look at me, think I'm mad, and then run.
Yes.
And be gone.
Yes.
And abandon me. So that's why all we've really got to do is exist in that space with them.
Yeah.
And be there for them. And so I guess the final thought of this, episode 7, as we conclude, the final thought I just want to impress upon people is, if you are struggling, and this is a real cliche thing, but it's a cliche because it's true.
As most cliches are.
Exactly, because they apply. Yeah, they're important. Please talk to somebody. And when I say talk to somebody, I don't mean casually drop it into a conversation with your friend that you're talking about. I mean, if you feel you need to talk about this subject, take the time to reach out to somebody, like message them and say, are you free to actually talk about something that's bothering me, that I need to share, that I need help with something?
Yeah.
Because we've said this already, haven't we? People, we might think they should have noticed it. They should have realised I'm in this place, because I've been demonstrating all this difficulty for so long. And the trouble is, don't think the people that you want to reach out to, or you think should be noticing, don't think they haven't got their own stuff going on.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean they won't have the capacity to help you and be there for you, but it means they might not necessarily notice it from day to day. So, you said this, didn't you? But you have to actually deliberately reach out and make it clear. Only once you've said, can you help me with this? And they've said no, can you then assume, okay, you're not in a position to help me?
Yeah. I mean, one of the favourite quotes that I love, which actually sounds like it's sort of detrimental to what we're saying, but bear with me, is, you'll care less about what other people think of you when you realise how seldom they actually do.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, my friends don't care about me. Of course they care about you. Of course they care about you. Don't be silly.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I use that as a thought when people say to me, like, oh, you wear short shorts and you have bright red hair. Yeah, because I don't care. I don't care what other people think of me, so that's fine. But that's the point. Other people aren't thinking about other people. We're kind of worrying about our own self. But if you go to them, if you knock on their door, if you call them, if you message them, if you say, I need you right now, and make it abundantly clear, then people will listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet,
but you have to start that conversation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in the media at the moment. So, just to contextualise the date that we're recording this, it's like the second day after the Meghan and Harry interview was aired, and you've got Piers Morgan saying, I don't believe a word of what she's saying. You know what? There will be people who don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay, but we have to accept there are people with limited understanding in this world. It would be unreasonable not to realise and accept that.
Yeah.
Our job is to, if we're struggling, find the people that will listen and will sit there in that space with us, believe us and support us, and allow us just to clear our head of all this circular thinking that can go on when we're struggling.
Yeah. So I think to finish, I'm just going to echo again what Tim said. If you are struggling, talk to somebody. Reach out and talk to them.
Brilliant. Okay, then I think that is the end of episode 7.
That is it.
Of Thinking Outside the Box.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for listening to us. Again, every time I go on every week to see where people in the world are when they're listening to this, I'm astounded by how many of you actually care about the things that Tim and I have to say. It's mind blowing. So Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We do really, really enjoy doing this. If you think our podcasts will help someone in any way, please do share it with them. Please do send them the link. Tell them to go listen to us. And in the meantime, you can find us on all the social media. You can find me on Instagram at Britt Marie Box. You can find Tim on Instagram at Tim Box Mind Coach. If you're listening to the podcast, please do tag us. We love hearing from you. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a wonderful day, whatever you are up to. Do something nice for you today, and we will see you on the next one.
Keep thinking outside the box.
Bye.
Bye.